I think a lot of the adults just should let their kids kind of just do what they want and be with their friends and let them be kids and let them have the
And
childhood that they should have and the interactions and things that they learn from being with people. I think that's very important. Don't get me wrong, I think physical health is very important, but I think mental health is just as, if not more, important.
just like how, I don't know, like the Black Lives Matter thing, like how, like, if people are saying that they're just getting killed, it's like, why would you even make that up if more people are dying? Like, people are getting killed by saying that.
As we find ourselves now in mid-August of 2020, Americans deal with many sources of stress. Open rioting and looting have broken out in significant American cities such as Chicago, Seattle, and Portland. It's nearly time for school to open. Will it open? If it opens, under what circumstances and conditions will it open? If it opens, what restraints will be placed upon students? There have been many discussions regarding the almost endless possibilities and considerations. Parents and teachers are exchanging emails, officials are suggesting guidelines, and there have even been White House conferences regarding the opening of school in a few weeks. But one very significant group has been widely overlooked in the public debate. What do the students think about the current circumstances? And how do they feel about the coming school year? With us today are two students. Rouge.
So I am going into 6th grade.
Great. And Lars, can you give us a bit of an idea of who you are?
So, I'm basically going into 10th grade. I'm gonna be a sophomore this year. My favorite subject is probably math, but I like art class too. And this year I'm gonna take a lot of computer classes, such as computer programming and like motion media and stuff like that.
I think you built your own computer, didn't you, Lars?
Yes, I did. I also helped build a friend's computer.
And I think Rogue is also pretty good with computers too. So we're, even though we know these guys in person, they are connected to us remotely with their technical skills, which is not too uncommon for kids these days. But
I think they were impressed with us when they found out that we knew how to use Discord.
yeah.
Some of us do, some better than others. Rogue, I have a question. Homeschooling, what do you like best about homeschooling, or how was the transition for you? Or when did it occur, and what do you like best about it?
It just gave me a lot of time to like just set my mind to it, and it would be way faster because you don't have to do this like for that amount of time, that for that amount of time. Like you can do it anytime you want. If you want, you could just play all day, and like at the end of the day, you could literally just like, get it all done, unless you had like a test that was at a certain time.
So does that kind of tell you that maybe time isn't that well spent or maybe not as efficient in school when you're like in a classroom with a whole bunch of other kids in person?
I guess yeah, cause like I feel like it shouldn't take that long, cause I've gotten it done since like 8 to 12 o'clock.
Do you get to interact with your friends, or how does that how has that worked out? Are there other kids that are in the same homeschooling program?
We just do like, like Google Meet stuff, just like video calls.
Oh, that was your public school, right? At the end of the year last spring
Yeah.
when they stopped having school, you started to do the Google calls and all the online classrooms and all that.
Yeah, we may not want to say what state they're in, but it would just to say that the state that these guys are in has a pretty sophisticated online school that they ramped up real quick when at the end of last year when COVID became a big deal. So they got used to that pretty quick.
Lars, you were homeschooled for quite a few years. Would you, and just because this is a show where we talk a lot about the MBTI and other personality type systems, I'm pretty sure that Rouge is an introvert, and Lars, you are an extrovert. So I have a feeling that is going to influence to some extent how you both like being in school or being homeschooled. But Lars, would you talk a little bit about your homeschool experience and compare it to going to public school?
So basically, I was homeschooled from kindergarten to 5th grade. And I homeschooling sometimes could be very frustrating because a lot of the times I didn't really know what I was doing. But most of the time my mother teach me really well, but sometimes I didn't really have like the same motivation, so to speak, or willpower to do some of the stuff or some of the homework in homeschool. And also it was very boring kind of not to have like any friends, so to speak, to interact with. But once I got into public school, like you said that like I'm an extrovert, and I just kind of my first year of school was kind of rough. Like I didn't really have a lot of friends, but once 7th grade kind of came along, I made a lot of friends, and then that was like the year that kind of made it that I was like yeah, I like public schooling better than homeschool.
So did you kind of have a realization like, you know what, I'm actually a pretty smart guy, or that kind of thing when you started interacting with kids in school? Did it surprise you that maybe sometimes you picked up things more quickly than the other guys?
Yeah, definitely sometimes.
What does motivate you? I hope this question isn't too far out, but are you in touch with what you said that you weren't as motivated when you were being homeschooled? Can you identify what it is about public school that motivates you more than homeschool?
I guess just like when I was younger, I would always want to play on my Wii, and I never really would want to do my work. But when you go to school and you're there, then you kind of have to do your work, and there's nothing really better to do there. And having study hall helps that a lot because that's usually when I get all my homework done. And usually when I get home, I don't really have homework, and if I do, then it's a very small portion.
The experience of public school, it's interesting how it looks like you sort of Rouge has had the reverse experience of going into homeschooling at about the same time you came out. But how did the interest in computers develop for you? Was that from the influence of school, or did you kind of arrive at that on your own?
I kind of just cuz like I play games a lot of the time, and I kind of just wanted to get a gaming PC. And originally I was going to get a pre-built one that was already built for me. But then I realized that it would be a lot cheaper and a lot kind of a better experience to build it myself. So once I did that, I kind of became more interested in computers, like software, and just stuff like that.
Now, do you get? I did want to follow that up then with a question about, I guess, would they call it social studies, or how does the school start to approach the subject of non-academic topics? More, they used to call it citizenship or something of that nature, and it was back in our day, it was a lot less what I would say ideological or tilted. But what's your impression of the non uh, substantive courses of that sort? The ones that involve maybe politics, or do you ever feel like they're biased in one direction or another?
I haven't really taken many of those, but from like the social study classes, that I've taken, they haven't really like shoved an opinion like in your face or made you think this way. They kind of just they've kind of backed off on that, which I've appreciated. But yeah, I haven't really had any bad experiences with that so far. It could change in my future years of high school, but I'm not sure.
Rouge, have there been any times in any class where there was an opinion expressed or something stated as fact that you felt like was opinion that made you uncomfortable?
Not really too much. I don't really remember anything that made me feel uncomfortable.
I think both of you guys have had, now this isn't directly like pertaining to school, but as far as interactions with friends that you know from school, there's been different reactions from their families about the whole masks and COVID and how you protect yourself and all of that. Does anything come to mind that you want to share that has to do with interactions with other kids?
There's very different opinions. Are we on the subject of masks? Or
yeah, I just brought it up. I mean, you can go into it now. I don't know if we have any other questions to ask you before, but it seems to me like we could start talking about that.
Okay, so first off, there's kind of two different sides of it. It's either you have to wear a mask, and if you don't, then you're gonna kill someone. And there's people that think that you shouldn't wear a mask at all, and you should have the right to not have to wear something on your face. Which I don't care about wearing a mask, but wearing one does not feel it kind of isn't as easy to breathe as you would not having a mask on. And I feel like when we go back to school, like they're gonna require masks. But I know for a fact that there's gonna be people in my school that are gonna refuse to wear a mask. That just flat out won't wear a mask. So in that aspect, the school probably won't want to start up or want to deal with that and just wait to go back to school. But yeah, that's my experience with people.
That's really interesting that you're anticipating that. So you obviously been talking to your friends about how they feel about masks and all of that.
Yeah.
And you have some idea what's going to happen. Very interesting. Rouge, do you have some similar ideas about what's going to happen or different?
I think they're just gonna like force it in. I think they're just gonna make masks have to be worn at school. I don't think they should be worn though, because like it does. I've been like having trouble breathing with masks, and I have allergies, so like that makes it even worse.
Yeah. What about during PE?
That would not be good either. The kids with asthma would not have very good times with that. Yeah, someone at least would pass out.
Well, right now, when are you wearing masks?
When's the last time either of you had a mask on?
That I'd say.
The store at a Walmart.
Yeah.
That's pretty common. I'd say in this area, it's the same thing. I don't wear one either, but when I go to the stores and if there's a sign and I don't see any point in starting a conflict usually in this, with the store, going along to get along. But going into school, that would, if I was, confined to the same building with central air and the whole thing, it's more of an issue. So, but Lars, overall, if you had to, do a poll, let's imagine you asked everybody that you come in contact with, what percentage of acceptance would you see? What percent are just going to wear the mask no matter what, and what's the non-acceptance rate? If there's a way to go about a percentage, maybe.
I'm not really sure about that. But I know that there's a lot of people, like, especially in my friend group, that are just like, they're not gonna fight over wearing a mask. They don't really like them and they don't want to wear them. But like, if they have to, then they will.
Are there any conscientious objectors, or what I mean by that is people that just won't, that will take a stand and just refuse to go along with the
Um,
program?
Not in my friend group, but I know that there are people that in my school that would be like that. With that attitude.
Can you identify what social group that might be? Like, would that be, like, I don't know, kids used to be called emos who were really into drama, or the kids who tend to smoke dope?
It really can be anyone, but it depends on what their political views are. Usually, an emo probably wouldn't do that type of thing, but I don't know. It really depends on your beliefs and your political beliefs in school.
Well, just a kind of a broad question, you guys, since you tied it to political beliefs, and we do know that this is a political thing, at least many people believe, myself included, that it's really more political than it is having to do with health, even though the health issues are definitely real. When I well, tell me a little bit, Lars, about your political belief development and when you started thinking politically, because you're in high school now, but you know, your younger brother probably, has developed his ideas as well as you have.
Okay, so I've kind of considered myself as a libertarian. My past few years, I've kind of it's been developing. Like my opinions over things have kind of developed, and I personally, like, I don't really see myself as a Democrat because I don't really agree with a lot of the things that they say, and I don't really see myself as a Republican either. So I kind of just put myself, and my mom is also libertarian. So, and I agree with a lot of the things that she says too.
Yeah, thanks. That's helpful. And do you think the mask thing has become more political or more health oriented? Do you think that the if there were to be say a doctor in a white coat that came into your school and said everybody must wear masks because we determined that it's important for your health, what kind of weight would that carry? Would people say, yeah, this guy knows what he's talking about, or would they not?
I feel like sometimes a lot of the times some officials say that they know a lot of things and that they know what's right, but a lot of the times they probably don't. I feel like in that type of situation though, where like a doctor with a white coat, I feel like some people are just kind of blindly just kind of trust and be like, yeah, that's what we have to do. But there would also be people that would be like, why should we trust this guy? Why what records does he have that shows that he is right about that type of thing? You know?
Yeah, have you been taught what the scientific method is? Do you know that from science and that whole
Uh,
idea?
yeah. I've kind of usually what happens is science class for me is I forget about everything over summer, and then like I have to like regain my memory back from it at school. But I remember some stuff from it though.
Something about evidence, right?
Yeah,
And facts and stuff like that.
yeah, evidence, hypotheses, stuff like that.
Lars or Rouge, do you ever look on the internet for to kind of do your own research, or are kids, because you're both pretty bright, and I'm just wondering if that's a trend in your age group, where you're an authority figure is telling you one thing, but then maybe you go and fact check that on your own, and try to develop your own opinion. Is that becoming more common with the internet, the access to the internet, for either of you?
Well, for me it is because a lot of the times people just blindly believe in what other people believe in, and they don't really do their own research for themselves to know if that's like the right answer or not. And it's not just for like the masks and COVID and stuff. It's for stuff that's happened in the past too. And it's kind of became more of an issue. But I feel like if people do the research about it, then I feel like, and if people are educated on stuff like that, then I feel like it would be way better. People would be way better off.
Rouge, do you do any if you've developed curiosity about some of these topics with the masks and other is that something that motivates you to find the truth, or how do you deal with authority figures when they give you one version of events that maybe you don't quite agree with right there?
I don't really know, like, not really.
Rouge, you research things on the internet about as much as
Right?
anybody I know.
Yeah.
It's not that you question authority figures, but I know that that's a resource that you guys all use a lot. Even your littler brother, that if you get stumped in a game or something, there's always a place where you can go online and find something out, isn't there?
So yeah, I do use the internet a lot. Thanks.
But maybe you don't use it as much to like challenge authority.
Yeah, no, not really, no.
So you are your Rouge, have your friends, does this ever come up with your friends, the issue of wearing a mask, not wearing a mask, being afraid of getting sick? Do your friends have parents that are upset one way or the other about the issue?
My friends hate the masks. Absolutely hate them. They think they're dumb too, and like.
So they don't feel like they're keeping them safe at all. They're not fearful.
They're not that fearful.
Have you guys heard that President Trump has made a point of this recently, that the as far as kids go, under the age of 20, especially, that the danger from COVID-19 is actually mortality rate is extremely low, lower than the flu.
Yeah.
Have you guys heard that?
Yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah.
This might be a little off topic, but sorry to interrupt you, Rogue, but my one friend kind of puts it good. It's something that you should be cautious about, but it's not something that you should fear. Like something that should affect your everyday life way more than it has to. And I feel like with a lot of people, COVID's done that. And with all this, like the quarantining and stuff, and all the online learning, social distancing, I feel like it's kind of been the changes have been way more drastic than they should be.
Why do you think that is?
I don't really know, but I feel like the news always talks about COVID, and I feel like the news might be trying to make it seem a lot worse than it actually is. If that makes sense.
Yeah, sure. When they approach masks, do the authority figures, do they talk about the danger to, say, the elderly at home, or they give you a reason?
Yeah, they always, because they say, a lot of people say a lot of the time that you don't need to wear masks really to protect yourself. It's more to protect other people, like mostly old people. That's usually what people talk about.
And does anyone ever push back and say, well, I don't have any old people in my household?
Yeah, a lot of the time. My one friend doesn't really think that because like a lot of people don't even really see their grandparents right now, because they're not, because even if even like, because for some reason, like as effective masks are, like you couldn't like go see your grandparents still, which doesn't really make sense.
We've talked about this a little bit, and then is the indoor air, I think, that's really maybe, I mean, we're just a hypothesis, but that might be part of it. But I think if people use the masks more in terms of when they're around somebody that's in a risk group, and it preferably outdoors, not in a confined space.
Guys, I think that the two of you know, and I know that Don and Ken know, that a pretty good friend of mine died Monday, and she had been sick. She had been in the hospital since early July, and it was just, she probably was in a risk group. She's just a little bit older than I am. Not great health, probably her whole life. She wasn't diabetic or didn't have anything specific, but just generally, she just, was not the picture of health. So this is kind of we always hear, well, nobody really knows anybody who died. Well, she did. She had 3 tests that were negative. She went to the hospital because she had a bad headache. She was admitted. She was there for about a week, and they put her on a ventilator. Her husband and her family was not allowed to see her that whole time, which is why this comes up, Lars, that you mentioned that your friends aren't allowed to see their grandparents. Now, I do appreciate the risk, especially for maybe somebody who's terribly ill, just generally heart problems or diabetes or some chronic problem like that.
Yeah.
But it's so, I think one of the things that we want to cover with you guys is just how disruptive this has been to people's lives, and you already kind of touched on that. But what was it like last spring for both of you? If you maybe can take turns, when I'm sure it was fun at first, the first couple weeks maybe, but when all of a sudden school was just done. That was it for the year, and all your activities and all your plans and everything was canceled. What did that disruption feel like?
Well, when you have like a constant schedule of waking up at 6, going to school at 7, yada yada, getting back at 3 o'clock, just that constant pattern, and then it just gets stopped just by not even going to school at all, was very weird. Like, just it was the strangest thing ever. And once I figured, like, at first, like you said, it wasn't as bad. It was like, it was just going to be an extended spring break. That's what they said it was going to be. And as time went on, they pushed the time we were going to come back farther back. And then they just said one day we're not going back to school. And they just said last day, or one of the last days, like, you could go to the school was just to drop your stuff off. And that was very weird for me. I wasn't really expecting that to happen.
Thank you. Let's hear from Rouge.
It was kind of drastic, a little bit. Not gonna lie. It was just kind of weird. Like, I couldn't be with my friend for like another 2 weeks because of this.
Yeah, no, that was probably the worst thing.
Yeah.
Like school, like I didn't really enjoy online schooling. It wasn't the worst thing in the world, but I would rather be at school. But I think the worst thing about that, the thing that happened, is that I couldn't talk to my friends. Or I could talk to my friends, but I couldn't really be with them, and I couldn't hang out with them in person.
One of the things that we probably forget now, and it's weird that we forget it, is that, tell me guys if this is wrong, but pretty much everybody was saying that this is 15 days to flatten the curve. And it's going to be really short, but we got to do it because we don't want to have the hospitals get overwhelmed. And so we got to do this thing for 15 days. And then it was extended to 30 days. Do you guys remember that?
Yeah, I do. It was Easter, right? Everything was gonna end Easter, and then they pushed it back, right? Until
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. That was pretty wild, and the fact that they wouldn't let people go to church was kind of also very wild.
Yeah,
So,
what Don's referring to is incrementalism, which is sort of a way of taking advantage of humans' ability to kind of forget bad stuff that happened in the past, or not to have memory of exactly what the deal was at the time because it was 2 weeks before. So you just slowly get trained into this rut that we get into. But um, the Rouge, a couple things, or just one thing really is what's your impression of the future with this whole thing?
I don't know. I just think I hope it stops really soon, next year. But if this just keeps continuing, people aren't gonna go on.
Yeah, so now some people think that it is kind of a political event and it's being exaggerated to a certain extent, and we'll see how it goes. I don't personally, I don't think it'll continue. They can't continue this forever. There's some indications that there's several ways of curing it that haven't really been looked into. Hydroxychloroquine and zinc, things like that are there, and they're kind of withholding that, and it's kind of suspicious to some of us. But have you? Now I remember when I was in sixth grade, life was all about fun. It wasn't about, I don't think the political um, things even got serious right away. But do you agree with that? Is that kind of the way it is? How do you look at it? What's your view of adults? Do you think we're all being kind of silly and worried about something that's really not worth worrying about, or what's you and your friends? What's your impression of how this is being handled?
I think some of the adults are being kind of ridiculous, just downright insane. Some of the adults understand what's going on. They don't agree with the mask.
I think a lot of the adults just should let their kids kind of just do what they want and be with their friends, and let them be kids and let them have the
And
childhood that they should have, and the interactions and things that they learn from being with people. I think that's very important. Don't get me wrong, I think physical health is very important, but I think mental health is just as, if not more, important.
thanks. You made me remember a question that I definitely want to ask both of you guys. How much do you guys pay attention to network news programs in your family? Is it on in the background? And how much for your friends? Do you know whether or not they watch the news on TV?
we
Uh,
sometimes do.
I don't watch the news. I see things that happen from articles and stuff and clips, but I don't really have a TV channel that I watch the news on. I just kind
Same
of
here.
But my friends, I think, on the other hand, I think some of their parents watch the news, but I don't think all of them do.
Yeah, it's kind of a mix these days. Yeah, we're pretty much do it the same way that you do, Lars. That we get things in bits and bytes from the internet and different news sources that we tune into for our own reasons.
How about you, Rouge? What's your impression of the whole news thing? Does it interest you, or is it just more or less a bunch of nonsense?
I don't really watch news because it bores me a little bit. I'm usually outside a lot of the time, so I'm playing with friends.
Yeah, that was my impression of fifth, sixth grade. It was a great time, um, and yes, sports were becoming more important, and all the cares of the world were just sort of silly, at the time. I
Well,
remember
well,
that.
I'll have to weigh in just a little bit briefly. That my main memory of politics in sixth grade is, of course, totally dating myself, but that was the JFK assassination for me, and it was like I realized that something big had just happened in the world, and the president had been shot, and that life was very, very different from what I thought it was, and it's something that affected me really deeply, even in sixth grade. And so I can't help but wonder that that kids that are like Rouge's age right now, like they're pretty much impacted by this big global event that really changed people's idea of the world.
Slightly different topic, but because of remembering, and when Don said that, mentioned about JFK, I'm a couple of years younger. I think maybe in 4th grade when he died. All I remember really is that my mom cried for 3 days. So I don't know that the virus has had that much of an emotional impact on families and parents, but I'm wondering, it just sparks the curiosity in me if any of your friends, or if it ever comes up, what's happened in some of the cities like Portland or Seattle, where there have been riots and fires and lootings. Has any of that? Do you and your friends talk about that? Are you even aware of that? I mean, it'd be nice if you're not, and if you're not, I'm sorry I brought up. I know that you know a little bit about it, but does that have any kind of emotional impact on you and your friends that is similar to what Don and I experienced, and I'm sure Ken too, when JFK was shot?
Yeah, I mean, it's just horrible to like just cuz I've known about like stuff like that ever since the big spark happened when George Floyd died. And everyone there was just kind of a huge outcry for that, and people kind of just started doing things that like really shouldn't have been done, like looting and riots and all of that, and it started to seem really silly and kind of scary from our point of view.
So you
Right.
kind of feel the social order breaking down in a way that feels weird to you. Am I hearing you right?
Yes.
Rouge, is that anything that you and your friends think about, talk about, or is that kind of outside of your scope of interest?
Yeah, we don't really talk about too much of it. Don't really.
Probably a good thing.
This might be a little off topic, but
That's fine.
in my friend group, we don't really peer pressure each other about our opinions. We kind of just all have our opinions and we agree with each other, or we agree on most things. But when we don't see fully eye to eye on something, we just respect each other's opinions. But in school, a lot of the times people try to peer pressure you into having a certain opinion, and when you don't have the opinion they have, like you're considered wrong.
How do they express that to you?
Kind of immaturely, like kind of just like in a very, sometimes it's in a very passive aggressive way, sometimes it's just in a very rude way, but they basically just make you, or they try to make you feel like you're wrong in every way about your opinion.
Is there any cost to you? Does it hurt you, or is it something that you feel the impact of, or do you just shrug it off?
I just shrug it off because at the end of the day, I don't care. Like you can have your opinion about something, but if you try to force your opinion onto someone else and like start to like yell at people and just try to like be preachy to people about opinions, then I feel like it gets really annoying, you know?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. What I'm wondering is whether or not that holding a certain opinion is necessary to be a part of some social groups in school. Is it just, a certain person or 2 or 3 people that are kind of independent that try to make people feel that way? Or is it like a clique, a group of people that say, like, you can't be one of us if you don't think like us?
Usually it's not a group thing. I think it's more of like an independent thing where like this person has that opinion and this person over here has this opinion, and they kind of just talk about it a lot, you know?
Uh-huh.
This is not a PC question at all, but I'm going to ask it anyway. And since I'm a female, I think I can do it, get away with it. Is it and I think I might know the answer, but maybe I'll be surprised. So I really want to know: does it tend to be more girls or boys who are more insistent that other people accept their opinion or agree with you? Or can it be both?
It can be both, but a lot of the time, it's usually girls.
Okay, I figured. Well, it's something that we've talked a lot about on various of our shows, is the fact that in MBTI that there's a difference between thinkers and feelers, and that females tend to be feelers and males tend to be thinkers, and the thinkers tend to be more cautious about forming opinions and even expressing opinions. So I was kind of, that's what my thought was. I'm not surprised, and the others probably are not surprised either to hear your response.
It makes me think of this. I got to draw your attention to one of the memes that I put in the little meme collection up near the top, and it's got pictures of a guy and a girl texting, and the girl types in, "If wearing a mask saves just one life, it's worth it." And then the guy types in, "If hydroxychloroquine saves just one life, it's worth using." And then the girl's blocked and reported. She didn't like what that guy was saying.
Saw that.
Did that make sense to you, Rouge?
It made a lot of sense. It's the truth. It's
interesting.
Okay. Now I feel kind of bad.
Let me, Rouge, I just want to ask you one thing and explain first that the way people sort the world is split into two groups that are not, necessarily all one or all the other, but people generally tend to be one or the other. Now, just wild guess, I'd say Lars sounds to me like what we would call in MBTI a TJ, which is a thinking type. Thinking meaning that logic is the primary way that the world is sorted. And so if something is true, scientifically or strategically, then it's the right way to go. Now, the other side of it, Rouge, is the feeler. Feeler type is based on values. So whatever your values are, that's how you sort the world, is based on what you like and dislike. And there's no right or wrong to that. We need both types. But thinking about that, Rouge, how do you feel you sort the world? Do you more sort it more like a logical sort of person, or more based on whether you like or dislike something? And there's no right answer to that question, really, or wrong answer. I mean,
I don't know. Like, I feel like I'm kind of logical to things. Like, it's like, I think logic is like the way to go.
Can you give me an example?
Just like how, I don't know, like the Black Lives Matter thing. Like, how, like, if people are saying that they're just getting killed, it's like, why would you even make that up if more people are dying? Like, people are getting killed by saying that.
You're creating a controversy that makes the situation worse, is what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
It's interesting that you saw that. You saw it because many people haven't seen through that. Now, Rouge, with that thought in mind, do you think that's possible that a lot of the things that we're seeing are not naturally occurring, phenomenon, that they're maybe they're there because it's an election year, maybe not. I don't know. What's your sense of how things are going in that area?
I don't know. I'm just like, sure.
Again, I'm trying to go back in time, and I'd see things and I'd get a sense of things, but I wouldn't quite know what to make of it yet. But I was seeing it pretty clearly, and thanks for bringing that up. It's an interesting observation.
Welcome.
Well, is there anything else that we want to touch on, guys? Is any opinion that you want to express that we haven't covered?
No.
Just kind of just putting in my final forethought on all this. I feel like at the end of the day, stores and stuff like that, it's their right to not serve customers and not let people in that don't wear masks. But a school, though, is kind of a different story. And I don't feel like at school we should be forced to wear a mask. And when we do go back to school, I think like what we're gonna do is we're gonna do like a split schedule, meaning that half of us will go in on like a Monday and Tuesday, and then the other half of us will go in on Wednesday and Thursday. But personally, I think if we do go back, we should either all go back or none of us should go back. And
Interesting.
yeah.
But it just occurred to me, you know how in some stores they're making you, walk down aisles in a certain direction and then follow the arrows and stuff like that. Are they doing that in high school halls, or do you think that they will be planning to do that, where you have to walk in one direction?
I don't know yet. I'm just gonna have to see when we go there. I wouldn't be surprised if they had something like that, but yeah.
Yeah, that just occurred to me. Another question, if either of you guys, I just suggest asking this to an adult that's, helping to enforce wearing masks. What would happen if you asked them, where are the hazardous waste disposal canisters for these highly toxic masks? Since this virus is so dangerous, where can I dispose of a contaminated mask? What do you think they would say?
They wouldn't say that where anyone is because they don't have them anywhere. I've seen in especially in parking lots, I've just seen gloves and masks just thrown off to the side.
Exactly.
It's it's kind of funny because people think that people are just they're so scared about this and they think that they're protecting people, but they're just dropping all that stuff everywhere, and it should be like deadly, right? Like just like people should be getting sick everywhere because like contamination.
Well, yeah, homeless communities, right? There would be no homeless communities left because they'd all be dead.
Well, I think if one little thing that we haven't talked about is the possibility of face shields, and because both of you are a little older, it's not really as big of an issue. But for younger children, especially, and to be quite honest, even for adults, a lot of communication happens that's not verbal. It's facial expressions and smiles, winks. Of course, you can still see people's eyes, but it's probably uncomfortable to know sometimes what's going on in somebody's head if you can't read their facial expressions. It's big part of body language. Do you either of you have you had any experiences of being frustrated because somebody was wearing a mask and you couldn't really tell? They look like they're angry even though maybe they're smiling. I think you haven't been around masks all that much, but have you considered that aspect of it?
It hasn't happened to me really in stores or anything, but I feel like when we go back to school, it definitely will happen.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll be harder to know if a girl is smiling at you, guys.
Yeah.
That would be that wouldn't be fun.
She'll have to blink a lot and use her eyes, I guess.
Or if someone's very mad with you, but you don't tell because you just think they're smiling at you.
That could be dangerous.
Yeah.
Well, to wrap up, I'd say that this too shall pass, and I don't think history will be kind to this period. I think there'll be a lot of jokes, and it's hard to see it now, but I've never seen anything that's more sociologically against the grain than this silly mask delusion. I know there's a case to be made for protecting people that are vulnerable, and that the only mask that works for that is the N95, which is a very it's a plain white mask that you can find pretty easily, and I get mine at Staples. So the times when I am around elderly people, certainly I'll do it, and I'll do it in a store just to kind of go along to get along. But both of you, it's been great talking. But I think I'd just leave you with that thought, that watch carefully what happens after the election. And I don't know what's going to happen either, but I have a feeling that don't get too downhearted about this. I think that it's all going to just kind of go away. I think it's a fad, like the hula hoop. We'll see what happens, but I'm sorry they're subjecting both of you to this indignity, and it really is an indignity. Choose carefully the hill you want to fight on, certainly, but don't back down either. Talk to your caregivers about that, and but thanks for coming on. I've got just the faith that you'll get through this just fine, and you both have great futures ahead.
Yeah, it's gonna be something easy to deal with. It's just gonna be kind of frustrating. It's gonna be a rock on the road, or a roadblock that won't really do much, but it's just gonna be more of an annoyance than anything.
Well, I'd like to, just for context, I'd like to close, if we're finished, by reading through a list that your mom sent us to use. It's kind of a meme, but the heading is "Protect Yourself from Viruses." And on one side there's bad information, on the other side there's good information. On the bad information side, and this is clearly a libertarian point of view, on the bad information side, wear a mask, social distancing, toxic hand sanitizers, wait for a vaccine, quarantine, synthetic vitamins. And on the good information side is practice healthy breathing, build healthy relationships, non-toxic hygiene products, boost natural immunity, get lots of sunshine, eat nutrient-dense superfoods. So I definitely like the good information advice, and I hope that a lot of our listeners will take that side to heart. So thank you for joining us for this episode of Poly-Psych Podcast. We hope that you have enjoyed this episode. If you have, we ask that you please click like, subscribe to us on YouTube, subscribe to us on BitChute, follow us on Twitter, and if you have a moment, please visit our website. Again, thank you so much to our guests for joining us, and thanks to all our listeners. Until next time, take care.